All right, you guys, we have finally made it to the NBA playoffs. They are here. We've been waiting all season. Finally, we get to watch the playoff basketball. It starts Saturday today with the 4-5 matchup in the East. So we're going to go through the Eastern Conference first, and then I'll go through the Western Conference. Let's take a look at these matchups. So the 4 seed is the Cleveland Cavaliers. As I talked about in the previous podcast, I feel like they are facing a lot of pressure in these playoffs. So they take on the Toronto Raptors, who ended up in an unexpected way, getting all the way up to the 5th seed on the last day of the season. They had to win to pretty much get in. If they would have lost, then they probably would have been in the play-in with the way things played out. But they ended up winning because Orlando ended up losing to the backups of the Boston Celtics. That propelled the Raptors up, and Atlanta also lost. So that propelled the Raptors to the 5th seed. So more favorable matchup for them than taking on the New York Knicks. As I've talked about with the Raptors before, they lose to pretty much all the good teams, except Cleveland. For some weird reason, they actually played well against the Cavs. They went 3-0 this year against them. But all those games were early in the season, and they haven't played them this calendar year pretty much. So at that point, it's hard to tell. James Harden's now in Cleveland, and Garland's not there. Also, teams just evolve throughout the year. So 4-5 matchup. My prediction here is that the Cavaliers are going to beat Toronto. They'll beat them in 5 or 6 games. I'm leaning 5 games, but this has the potential to be a decent series. The thing that I just keep looking back on is with that amount of pressure and the fact that the Cavaliers have the experience. Look, James Harden, for all his flaws in the playoffs, the guy has never missed the playoffs in all his NBA seasons. So he has a lot of experience. He's faced games with a ton of pressure before. He's been to the finals before. And all right, Donovan Mitchell never made a conference finals, but he's been in the playoffs as well several times. He's been in pressure situations. You know he's going to show up. Evan Mobley's not that young of a guy anymore. I mean, he's still young, obviously, but I'm just saying the Cavs now have guys that have been there before. And I just think that we also don't really know much about what Darko Rajakovic, the head coach for Toronto, is going to do. It's his first playoff series as a head coach. The Raptors are better this year, but how is he going to adjust? Is he going to make the right adjustments? I'll tell you right now, I think at one point or another, you're going to need to play the rookie, Colin Murray-Boyles, more if you're Toronto. And he's a rookie, and he's going to be playing playoff basketball. And, you know, the Raptors, look, the reason why I think this has potential to be a good series is because, believe it or not, the Raptors are actually ranked 5th in defense. Yes, in the whole NBA. Toronto is 5th in defense. And that's because of guys like Scotty Barnes, who is a tremendous defensive player. But Colin Murray-Boyles has been a great defensive piece for Toronto, but he comes off the bench and he has really no offensive game except getting putbacks or layups or, you know, setting screens and getting a pick and roll here and there and finishing at the rim, which he's pretty good at. But in the playoffs, when the game slows down, when the tempo's slow, who can create for Toronto? And that's ultimately where I think that they'll start falling apart. And you're going to have to sacrifice defense because, like I mentioned, I mean, their best defensive lineup is going to have to involve Jakob Poeltl just for size when you got to go up against Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. So you're going to need Poeltl in there. You're going to need Scotty Barnes in there. And you're going to need Colin Murray-Boyles in there as your best defensive lineup. And 3 of those guys, all 3 of them, really aren't perimeter shooters. So at that point, where's your offense coming from? Sure, you can have Brandon Ingram be your offensive weapon, but, you know, Cleveland's just going to try to shut him down and dare Toronto to get offense somewhere else. So we'll see how that pans out for them. Again, I got the Cavaliers in 5 games here. I think they'll finish it at home. Toronto will get one in Toronto, and I think that'll be it. I hope it's a long series. Obviously, I grew up with a lot of love for Toronto, so I want them to, you know, extend this series as much as you can, but realistically, not sure how that will play out. All right. The next series in the East, Saturday afternoon, Knicks-Hawks. Knicks are on home court. And again, as I mentioned in my previous podcast, the Knicks are the team that I think has the most pressure in these playoffs. All right. So they fired their head coach 1 game shy of the NBA Finals last year, and the pressure's on. And they get to face an Atlanta Hawks team that has been, you know, getting it going down the stretch of the season. They've been hot. They climbed up the standings. They earned a playoff spot, so they're the 6th seed. But realistically, when push comes to shove, look, I just said it. The Knicks were in the conference finals last year, pretty much this exact same team, different coach. But even if we want to think, let's just say hypothetically, like Mike Brown coaches worse than Tom Thibodeau did, the talent and the experience that the Knicks have with going up against a young Hawks team, I think people, caught on to the Hawks and got with the hype train thinking, all right, they're hot right now. Could they take on the Knicks and knock them off? I don't think so. I think this series will go 5 games. Honestly, I kind of think the Cleveland-Toronto series will go deeper than this Knicks-Hawks series, even though most people are actually thinking that if there's an upset in the Eastern Conference, it's going to be the Hawks upsetting the Knicks. I don't see it happening. I think if there's an upset, I don't even see Toronto doing it. I really don't see any upsets in the Eastern Conference happening. I guess it's a coin toss, whether it's the Hawks upsetting the Knicks or the Raptors upsetting the Cavaliers. I don't see it. Honestly, I'm biased, fine, but I think Toronto upsetting Cleveland is a higher probability than Atlanta doing so to the Knicks. The Knicks, let's not forget, okay, the Knicks have been there before. They have Jalen Brunson. Josh Hart is a dog. He can guard Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns. Mitchell Robinson can play great defense. I don't see how Atlanta is going to do it. I get their nice story. They have a lot of young talent, but I just don't see it. I think the series I'll give them a game. I think it's 5, and it ends at the Garden in game 5. All right, the other Eastern Conference matchup is the Celtics taking on the 7-seeded Philadelphia 76ers. Look, I think the Celtics have a tendency of sleepwalking into the playoffs. We've seen it before against Miami, where they dropped the first 2 in Miami, and then in one time that they played Miami, they ended up losing. They were down 3-0, and it came down, and they brought it all the way back to host a game 7 and lost to Miami. The other time they played Cleveland, and I think they lost the first 2 games at home to Cleveland as well. Ended up winning that series, but they have that tendency to do so. However, I don't think this happens this time. I think the Celtics, their culture, their professionalism comes through. I think they know that they need this series to be done quickly to avoid having to face Joel Embiid if the Sixers extend it. So I think the Celtics will be focused, will be locked in. And I also just don't see this series going that long, but I want to say it's Celtics in 5 because I think they'll be focused, but I want to give Tyrese Maxey some love. I want to, think that Paul George can have an impact in one of these games. So I'll say Celtics in 6. And I think maybe Joel Embiid comes back in for a game 6, do or die game or something like that. And it's just not enough. So I'll pick Celtics in 6 games. But again, I think the Celtics are focused. It's just they can't really afford Embiid to get back and play multiple games in this series because he's such a mismatch for them, I think, especially, now that they don't have a guy like Al Horford there. Kate has been great, don't get me wrong, but Embiid is just a different beast. He's probably got like 50 pounds on Kata. And the other series, we watched it with the Magic defeating the Hornets and what was a very shocking play-in game. Now they get to play Detroit, the Pistons, and I think this one's going to be a sweep. I think if there's a sweep, it's this one. I think Detroit is young enough to where they'll be locked in, focused, and not want to put pressure on themselves. They're the number 1 seed in the East. So if you drop a game to the Orlando Magic, pressure is absolutely on you as the number 1 seed. So I think the Pistons will get the job done. I got Detroit in that one. All right, to the Western Conference. The best series in the whole playoffs for me is the 3-seed Denver Nuggets taking on the 6-seed Minnesota Timberwolves. I think this has obviously the potential to go 7. They've done it before. These guys have played each other. They have experience. They've seen each other. However, I am very bullish on the Denver Nuggets, not just because Nikola Jokic, but because I just think the pieces around him are finally more complementary to his game. The regular season hasn't shown that they can play defense like they should be playing. They are not ranked top 10 in defense. They've struggled a lot there, but they've also been missing Aaron Gordon for a lot of the season, and he is their best defender. Okay, so I think they're, if he can, I'm not going to say shut down because he's not going to shut down Anthony Edwards, but kind of contain, and that puts a lot of pressure then on, all right, Julius Randle, what can you do? Gobert is not a big offensive weapon, and that's where again, they lost Nikhil Alexander Walker to Atlanta now. So I don't think that the Wolves have necessarily gotten better. And with the Nuggets, I think they've gotten deeper. And by that, I think that translates into getting better. I think with Bruce Brown, with Jonas Valanciunas, who can spot Jokic a couple minutes and try to hold water there while he's on the bench. Cam Johnson coming in for Michael Porter Jr., I think is kind of a wash, to be honest. But like I said, Bruce Brown and some guys like that, Watson has played a lot better. He came on when Jokic was out, Peyton Watson. So I think he's gotten better. So I think the Nuggets are deeper. And I just think that when you watch the regular season, people were kind of concerned with the Nuggets because their defense was not good. But I also think that they're such a veteran team that they were just kind of waiting to get to the playoffs. When they played good teams, like you saw that game that was, I think it was the Sunday or the Saturday ABC game, and they played against the San Antonio Spurs and they won. You know, if you have that bad of a defense, you're going to get smacked by the Spurs. And I think they locked in for that game because they knew it was a good game. I mean, the one game that they lost to the Thunder earlier this year also, it was, I think it was in March. They lost to the Thunder, and it was a very competitive game because I think they lock in for the important matchups, and now it's the playoffs. So I'm going to go Nuggets in 6 in this series, but I think it could go 7. Ant is incredible. So we'll see how that plays out. The other series in the West is the Lakers taking on the Rockets. And I'll just say this, if there's going to be an upset, obviously the Wolves would be an upset because of them being the 6th seed taking on Denver. But if there's an upset in these, well, actually this wouldn't be an upset, but I guess I was going to say, I was thinking the Lakers were seeded worse than the Rockets, but they're not. They're actually they're 4 seeds, so they get home court. But they feel like the underdog because Luka's injured, Austin Reeves is injured. So I think most people would predict that the Rockets are going to win this series. But if there's an upset in terms of maybe the line or the spread and not the standings, I think it's the Lakers because LeBron's not going to go away easy. Okay. LeBron's been to the finals with crappier teams than what he's got right now with the Lakers, right? I mean, or similar. He doesn't have much right now with the Lakers with those two, Luka and Austin Reeves being out. But I think JJ Redick's a good head coach. And I just think that the Rockets are a delicate team. We've seen it. I mean, whether it's been the burner stuff with Kevin Durant or Alperen Şengün, having to be benched at late of games and things like that. I think the Rockets aren't clicking on all cylinders. And so I think the Lakers just need to get a couple games and extend, similar to the Embiid and Boston situation. So I think for the Lakers, it's crucial that they get, I mean, if they don't split at home, it's over, right? But I think if they split at home and at least the first 2 games, if they say they win game 1 and they lose game 2, anything can happen, right? I mean, they beat Houston on the road back-to-back nights in March. And again, they had Luka and it's a different team. But if LeBron can pull out a game in Houston and the series is 2-2 coming back to LA for game 5, I think either Austin Reeves is back or Luka Doncic or possibly both. But I think if you get one of those guys back at home for game 5, that's the spark you need. And you get that win. Now you give whichever guy didn't come back yet another 3 or 4 days to come back for a possible game 7. So look, I think it'll be a tight series. And this has my favorite series is the Nuggets Wolves because going into it, you're thinking these 2 teams are, pretty evenly matched and they should be a good battle or whatever. And they have history, but competitive wise and final score wise and games being close, I think the Lakers Rockets has that potential. And I'm going Lakers in 7. I think the Lakers will get somewhat healthy towards the end of this series. Remember, it's the first round too. So there's more off days in between series. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Lakers in 7. All right, moving on. We go to the Oklahoma City Thunder hosting the Phoenix Suns, who just clinched the playoff spot today. Look, no matter who the Thunder were going to play in round 1, it was pretty much likely going to be a sweep. And that's how I feel. I think the Thunder, having the experience of winning the championship last year, aren't there to mess around. The Suns have had a great season. I feel similar with the Suns as I do with the Hornets, even though they're kind of not as young as the Hornets. But look, the Suns were expected to win like 30 games this year, and they actually made the playoffs, right? It's just been a promising turnaround. I salute Devin Booker for not quitting on Phoenix and being one of those guys that seems to be loyal to one team for his whole career. That's the way it seems like he wants it to play out, and I love that. So it's been a good season for the Suns, and I'm not trying to, read the end of the season eulogy here for the Phoenix Suns, but let's put it this way: if the Phoenix Suns upset the Oklahoma City Thunder, it's arguably the biggest upset in the history of the NBA. I mean, that would be insane. So no pressure at all on Phoenix. If they can steal a game, that'd be awesome. But I do think that this will be the sweep of the West. I do see the Thunder just getting the job done here. And then the last series in the West, I think it's going to be a good series. Okay. I think it has the potential of being a pretty fun series. And that's the Spurs hosting the Blazers, Spurs being the 2 seed. On paper, you're thinking this is a sweep, possibly a 5-game series if the Blazers can get one. And I am going to go Spurs in 5, but I think that the games are going to be close. Okay. Again, the Spurs are young. People, you can't forget that the record is great. And Wembanyama is one hell of a dog. That guy's competitive, but they're young. And so, I mean, so are the Blazers, but that just means that there's 2 teams that, aren't used to this. So anything can happen. So I think definitely the Blazers will get one at home. I mean, we just saw the Blazers take care of business in Phoenix in the play-in, and Deni Avdija took over. But I do think that with the Blazers now, it's a challenge. With Wemby being in the paint, it's going to be like, all right, well, can you guys shoot? And they don't really have shooters like that. And I think that's what's going to present the battle there for the Blazers to score. Can they score? And then on the other end, well, who can stop Wembanyama, right? So I'm going to pick the Spurs in 5 there, and that's the way I'll see it playing out. I'll go ahead and do my predictions all the way to the finals here just for fun. But again, I'll do series predictions as the series, advance. In the East, I had the Cavaliers advancing and I had the Pistons advancing. So that will be one semifinal series. And in the other series, I will have the Celtics and the Knicks. I will pick the Cleveland Cavaliers to upset the Detroit Pistons in that one. Obviously, I'm not going to predict the number of games. I'll just pick what I think will happen. I think the Cavs would beat the Pistons in that potential matchup. So they would advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think the Celtics would beat the Knicks in the other Eastern Conference semifinals to advance to the conference finals. And then from Cleveland and Boston, I've got the Celtics beating the Cavaliers and making it to the NBA Finals. In the West, as I said, I got the Nuggets advancing, taking on the Spurs. That will be one of the semifinal series in my prediction here. And then I would have the Thunder and the Lakers in the other semifinal series. And from there, I'll have the Thunder knocking off the Lakers and getting to the conference finals, taking on the Spurs. No, not the Spurs, the Nuggets, who I will predict will knock off the Spurs in the semifinals, make the conference finals. And it'll be a rematch of last year when it was the Denver Nuggets against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And last year they played in the semifinals. I think this year we get a rematch in the conference finals. And I'm going to go ahead and pick the upset. I think the Denver Nuggets will knock off the defending champion, OKC Thunder. Just, again, it's so early to tell. This is not going to happen for another month and a half. But assuming everyone's healthy. Okay, last year, the Nuggets took the Thunder to 7 games. And by the end, Michael Porter Jr. had a football shoulder pad pretty much on his shoulder because he was injured. And Aaron Gordon had a messed up hamstring and was limping around in Game 7. And they still took him to Game 7, right? So this year with a healthier and deeper Nuggets team and a Thunder team that's practically the same but with some more experience, I'll give them that. I just think it'll be close again. Anything can happen. I'll make it fun and say the Nuggets will knock off the Thunder. So the finals would be the Nuggets taking on the Boston Celtics. And at that point, I will pick the Denver Nuggets to be the NBA champions because I think Jokic is just such a tough matchup for anyone. The Celtics don't really have an established big. So I think Jokic will be able to feast in that matchup. And I think if Aaron Gordon can, in that hypothetical NBA final series, just take out or limit either Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, then, well, now it's down to one superstar. What can he do? And you put your second best defender on him and send help. And at that point, it's going to have to be the role guys for the Celtics. And I just don't think that they'll be able to compete with the depth that the Nuggets have. That's the way I see it playing out. So again, we're getting way too far ahead of ourselves, but I figured I'd just give my full-on playoff predictions now. And again, I'll talk these through more as the matchups play out, as the playoffs advance. But happy playoff day, everybody. Enjoy 4 games today. Super exciting. And then 4 games Sunday. So that'll be fun as well. So I'm very much looking forward to watching these. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you thought that I got my predictions right or wrong. What did I get wrong? Let me know. And I'll talk to y'all on the next one. Enjoy the playoffs.